Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happen every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Carolyn.
And I'm Danielle. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Send us an email at womensportsweeklypod@gmail.com, and we may feature your email on the Les.
Still love it.
Still love it.
Women's Sports Weekly t-shirts are here. Please complete the pre-order form by Friday, April 18th. There are purple tie-dye t-shirts, black, white, and gray options. You can head over to our Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod and click on the link tree. You will complete the pre-order form and Venmo or PayPal me before we put in the order. We just want to know how many we have. And we will also include the pre-order form in our show notes so you can click in there. The t-shirts are $35 and $5 for shipping. If you live in Denver, you can coordinate pickup with us if you don't want to pay for shipping. However, we will not deliver. As I mentioned, the pre-order form closes on Friday, April 18th. I know a lot of you were waiting to put in your pre-order form because you thought you were going to win the Women's Sports Weekly March Madness bracket, because the winner of the bracket, and we'll announce the winner later in this episode, will receive a free Women's Sports Weekly t-shirt. But most of you, everyone except one, did not win. So go in and complete your pre-order form to get your Women's Sports Weekly t-shirt.
Exciting. We also have Run Club this week. We will be back. Carolyn and I had a miss last week because we were at the Final Four, but we'll be back at Run Club this week, which we're excited for. The secret word that you can use this week in order to get 50% off your first draft is Huskies.
Yes. Thursday nights at 6 o'clock, we begin at the 99ers. All right, let's do a quick highlight reel because we have so much to talk about. But before we get into the Final Four, we need to talk about the transfer portal.
It is absolutely insane. It almost feels like every single player is in the transfer portal right now.
Well, almost every single player on Notre Dame is in the transfer portal, so I understand why you say that. Notre Dame guard Olivia Miles is not going to the WNBA draft and entered the transfer portal for her 5th year. She joins a long list of Notre Dame players and other players across the nation. Some other major highlights: Tania Latson from Florida State University entered into the transfer portal. Kiyomi McMiller from Rutgers, which we could kind of see that happening with what happened earlier this season. Samaya Smith from LSU. And then Kaylee Heckel and Avery Howell, both from USC, enter the transfer portal. It's a crazy time with the transfer portal. This happened last year. We'll see where everyone lands. We had an opportunity to get to hear Gino Auriemma speak in a pregame press conference, and he was talking about the transfer portal and how for so long there was this really difficult relationship between players and coaches because the coaches had all the power. And now with an open transfer portal and NIL deals, the power has totally shifted towards the players. But he also did mention that there's more friction between players on the same team. And that really got me thinking. And I was like, yeah, I think he's right. There obviously is more friction between players on teams because there's money involved now and so many different things. So I ultimately think NIL is a great thing. And I think the transfer portal is an opportunity for people to land in a place that fits them best. And so I'm pretty supportive of that as well. However, I do think, and maybe we could talk about this on a different episode when we don't have a whole bunch of Final Four to talk about, I do think there needs to be some more regulations and rules just to make sure that it doesn't get out of control, both NIL and the transfer portal.
It's going to be interesting what continues to happen. I'm curious if they'll make changes in years to come, but right now it feels like a free-for-all.
Okay, let's get into the Les this week, the listener experience zone. Just a reminder, you don't need to be a Les in order to send us an email. We don't check, but that's what it's called, the listener experience zone. So let's get into it. Hey, Carolyn and Danielle, my name is Tori, and I have been completely obsessed with your podcast ever since I discovered it in the midst of March Madness last year. I love being able to hear different perspectives on all things women's sports. Your podcast has given me people that share my interests and who I can't directly talk to, but you two always make me feel like part of the conversation every episode. I wanted to share my life-size March Madness bracket that I made for this year's tournament. It has been so fun each game getting to move up my favorite teams these past few weeks. And quite honestly, it's pretty sick wall decor. I included a picture of my bracket, and I know that you two love your Gamecocks, but for me, it's go Huskies! Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. Thank you so much for spreading so much light on all the women's sports every week, Tori. I love this email. First of all, Tori has been such a great listener and supporter of us, so thank you, Tori. And this bracket is so sick. We're going to post a picture to our socials of it, but covers Tori's entire wall. I'm so upset that the Gamecocks lost, but very excited for Tori that she could move her Huskies along.
For sure. Thank you, Tori, for reaching out. I'm honestly inspired to make this wall decor for our house next year. I absolutely love it.
We'll take down our wedding photo and we will make a life-size bracket here. Okay, let's get into what we're talking about this week, which is the Final Four. We were in Tampa and we want to give you all a rundown of our day by day because a lot of things happened and it's going to be an interesting one.
Great weekend. Had some bumps in the road.
We'll get into it.
Every Final Four is exciting, so I'm really happy we got to go and we get to share it with you all.
So on Wednesday night, this past week, we got into Tampa pretty late and we were team no sleep as usual because we needed to get up early because we had a breakfast with ESPN starting Thursday morning.
Which I was really excited heading into this breakfast because just the opportunity to meet so many ESPN broadcasters.
Yeah, we met Andrea Carter, Ryan Ruocco, Chiney Ogwumike, Carolyn Peck, Elle Duncan was there, Rebecca Lobo was there, Holly Rowe was there. It was very, very cool. We did get to spend a little extra time talking to both Andrea Carter and Ryan Ruocco, who were both amazing. And you have a special connection to Andrea Carter. She is someone on your list of people that you just love. She's on the list of people that I may lose Danielle to.
No.
We didn't tell her that.
I do love Andrea Carter, and you and I have had many conversations about that. I just think she's awesome. I personally just love the big three in general, like Chiney, Elle Duncan, and Andrea is one of my favorites. So
Danielle just really can't say that she thinks someone's hot because she doesn't want to be unprofessional, which I understand, but let your freak flag fly, be a little perv on here sometimes. You just can't let it go.
No, but the coolest thing about meeting Andrea is every time we meet people who we've been watching Andrea on ESPN for how many years now, and you meet them and you don't know what to expect, and she was so kind.
So kind.
Like, we went up to her, introduced ourselves. You said, "Hey, I'm Carolyn. This is my wife, Danielle. We have a podcast." What does she do? She takes out her phone. She says, "I love podcasts. What's it called?" And she says, "Hold on a minute." We tell her what it's called. And she literally starts following us on Spotify. I don't know if she'll ever listen. Hope she does. But the fact that she took the time to show interest and do that. And then we just had a very chill, normal conversation with her and just got to know her a little bit. She was asking us questions. And I just think it's her humility in that situation just made me like her even more.
Definitely. We're learning more and more. We get starstruck easily, which to a point, I never want to lose that. Like, I always want to be a fan. And these people are people, and they've just been so gracious with their time. On top of that, some of the people who listen to us every week don't even follow us. So the fact that she took out her phone and gave us a follow was so nice.
Yeah, it was awesome. So speaking to her at the start of breakfast was a great start to the day. And then we went over to Ryan Ruocco, another person who was just so cool to speak to.
Yeah, just wanted to talk basketball with us, which was so nice. And I think people can sense nervousness too. So they're like, if these people are in the media, they know about basketball. So I'm just going to talk basketball with them, and just made us feel so comfortable. And we're like, yeah, we can talk basketball all day.
Even seeing him later in the day and giving him a smile and him saying, "Hey guys," like just so chill and nice was very cool. We briefly spoke to Chiney Ogwumike and Carolyn Peck, also very nice. Those conversations were a little shorter. There were a ton of media in there, so it's not like we had a ton of time with these people, but very cool. Standing right next to Holly Rowe, who literally is on the TV screen every time I turn on any sporting event.
Anything.
Like, it's just unbelievable to be in the same room as some of these people.
I don't want to take that for granted. We were lucky enough to get a media pass for the Final Four and got to do a lot of cool things. And we went on to that breakfast, and then we got right into practices and pregame press conferences with coaches, and then got to go into the locker rooms and interview whoever we wanted, just walk up to them and just start. It was crazy. This was not Unrivaled. The media compared to Unrivaled must have been times 600. That's not even an exaggeration on my part.
Not at all. I felt like in every situation with other media, I was fighting for my life to get one-on-one time with someone, or just to establish a place online to speak with someone. It felt like we were at war with these people. People were trying to cut us off in the locker rooms, and big cameras on their shoulders. It was just a very eye-opening experience. And while it was stressful for us, I'm excited to see that so many people are showing interest in the women's NCAA tournament. And I know Gino was quoted in one of the press conferences that that's the most women he's seen in a press conference. And it's like little things like that just show how much the game is growing.
Definitely. And we learned a ton. We learned so much this past weekend as media. And also we learned about ourselves. Like, neither of us love to be in a crowded room with a bunch of people trying to fight our way through. I can do it. The New Jersey in me comes out, but it's not where I feel most comfortable.
Yeah. And I kind of just tell you to take care of it, because I probably won't be doing that. I don't know where the jersey got lost on me.
You're like, maybe we should just let them go. And I was like, no, we've been standing here for 10 minutes and they just walked up. They're not getting the next question. So yes, we fought to make sure that we have some interviews to share with you all. But let's talk about some of the practices we saw. So one of the first practices we jumped in on was Texas. And we watched Texas practice, and I looked to you and I said, Texas is winning a national championship.
I thought the same thing. When you meet these players in person, they are just so much bigger than they look on TV. And the strength, like, I was looking at Shea Holly. Now, Shea Holly's not that tall. Like, she's a guard. Her quads are
quad envy.
So muscular. I was just like amazed. And it's something you don't see on the TV screen, but when you're 2 feet away from someone, it's like, oh my God. You were just so fit. Taylor Jones on Texas, massive.
In the best way.
Yeah.
In the best
so
way.
Tall and strong. Kyla Oldacre. It's just, again, the bodies on these players just continue to amaze me.
You know what they say. Everything's bigger in Texas. That's what I was thinking the entire time I was watching them. They also practiced at such an intense pace. They weren't running crazy. Just the drill that they were doing was very intense. The way that they were talking to each other, the way that the practice players were getting involved, it was very intense. And I was like, if they're practicing like this, there's no way that they're not winning a national championship. They obviously didn't, but I was just amazed that that's what it looked like.
We as media were able to see the first 15 minutes of the practices. The drill Carolyn is speaking about literally happened in the first 15 minutes. And it's like, how do you even get to that point that early in practice that you're working that intensely and that hard together? It was very interesting. And I also in that moment was like, how does anyone beat this team?
Yeah, they look great. Also, I love that all of the Texas players had on A1s. They all had the Asia Wilsons on, which was just so great. I feel bad. South Carolina can't wear the A1s because they're sponsored by Under Armour, and Asia Wilson's deal is with Nike. But the Texas players had them on and were practicing in them, which I just thought was a really cool thing. The other thing that I wanted to mention in the practices that we saw and the time with the players. So we got time with the players in the locker room. We talked a little bit about how overwhelming it was. I can't imagine what it was like for the people who were in the Final Four for the first time, for the freshmen in the Final Four, for the players, the teams that were making it to the Final Four for the first time, because we were overwhelmed. And I was just like, these players must be so overwhelmed by the amount of media, the speed at which the day goes. People are coming in, they're flying out. Some of the media just want to talk to you for what they need, and that is it. And some are a little bit curt. Things just happen really, really quickly. And I felt bad for the players because I was like, this must be a lot for them.
And as media, we were given about 20 minutes in each locker room. And these locker rooms are not that big. Media starts lining up down the hall. And once the time hits, they allow media to go towards the locker rooms. People are speed walking towards the locker rooms to get to the players they want to get to, and then you're just crowded in this space. I as well was thinking being a player in this situation has to be so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And there were some players who embraced it and had so much fun with it. There were players who were in between, and then there were some players you could tell just were not enjoying that situation. Yes. So that was also interesting to see the dynamics between how different players responded to the media versus others.
Yeah, and I would say that one's not worse or better than the other, right? Yeah. Like it's like an introvert stream or an extrovert stream, and that was definitely an extrovert stream, and the introverts must just be like, oh boy, this is a lot of energy in a room.
Yeah. And another thing I noticed, the players who don't get a lot of playing time were not getting any attention by the media. And that broke my heart a little bit. And I get it. And at the same time, I was like, oh, that has to be so difficult to just be sitting there watching your teammates get all this attention. And you're just sitting there with no one talking to you. Like that was insane to me as well.
I know. We're both empaths. So we were like, should we go and talk to so-and-so? Like they're just sitting there and it just feels horrible. Like it shouldn't be like that. Everyone contributes to a team. And the sad part is that media brings attention and brings in money. And in order for your media to do well, you need to have certain players in it. We've talked about it before on this podcast. If we mention Caitlin Clark's name on this podcast or put her in the title, we're going to get more listens just by doing that. And so there is this business part of it that just seems cruel sometimes.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And that part was hard for me to say.
We mentioned that we learned some things. So we got to talk about the ticket debacle. And if we sound too cringy in this, I'm going to take it out. But I think we can,
can
talk about
and I don't think we need to dive into this too deep. But as part of our media credentials, we were told we were going to get seats at the game. And we were under the assumption that they would be pretty close to the court.
Which was a bad assumption, I think, on our part. And also, we already had tickets to the Final Four. We bought tickets already in advance for both semifinal games and the championship. So we did not go, we're going to get these media passes and then we're going to have a free weekend. That's not how this works. We always pay our way to get places. Yeah. And we were like, we're going to have these tickets. But then we were looking through the media packet and it kept saying, you're going to get seating. There's 2 areas where the seating could be. We were like, okay, I guess we should sell our tickets for Friday.
And part of it, it's so annoying when people buy tickets to games and then there's empty seats in the games. We went back and forth about this and we were like, we don't want to be those people. And if we do get these nice seats with media, would it be realistic to go sit in the seats we paid for? And the other thing was, we were like, we want to come back as media. If we're not in those seats, is that going to give us a bad name? And the reason we really struggled with this is because my family was up in the same seats and then our friends were up there. The second we realized we were getting media credentials, we went back and forth about this and made a decision a few days before the game
that we were going to sell the tickets. So we sold only our Friday tickets. Luckily, we did not sell the championship tickets. And then the night before the semifinal game, I got an email and it said, here is your seating. And not everyone got seating because we have more media than we do seats. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like literally I was like, I can't believe I convinced Danielle to sell these tickets. I look and there's 1 seat for Women's Sports Weekly. So I send an email back and I'm like, hey, there's 2 of us here. Is there any possible way we can get another ticket? And they were like, so sorry, can't do it. I wanted to write back a whole sob story about how we had tickets and then we sold them and this is really not going to be great for us. But I just said, I understand.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me know. We're going to go and buy tickets because a lot of the content that we want to provide is the fan experience. And please tell me how one of us was going to sit in the seat and the other one was not. Like that just was not going to happen. We would be sitting on each other's laps. It just would not be possible. I just bought us some new tickets. They were super expensive. We got better seats. Couldn't sit next to our friends and family, which also really sucked. And we made it work. And luckily, you had a gut feeling and we did not sell our tickets for Sunday. So we were able to keep those. But that was the start of a series of unfortunate events for our weekend. And we'll get more into that.
It was an unfortunate start. You mentioned you convinced me to sell tickets. It was both of our decision. We went back and forth. It was just unfortunate. It was stressful. It is what it is. We learn, right?
Yes.
Like it's just one of those things that we learn as we go, and that's what it is. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. And, if you're thinking about buy a t-shirt, please buy a t-shirt. I'm just kidding. We wanted to go to the game, so that's what we're going to do. All right, let's get into these semifinal games. Let's start with Texas versus South Carolina. South Carolina beat Texas 74-57. South Carolina started off slow in this game. I was worried, and you could tell that Texas was amped for this game. Specifically, Madison Booker was very, very excited.
From the start, you could tell she was fired up, and she started out on fire. But the bad thing about her being so amped up is she made some mistakes on defense and picked up 3 fouls in the first half for the first time in her career. And the third foul was a dumb foul.
And she knew it. Everybody knew it.
And I felt so sick for her in that moment because she is one of the best players in college basketball right now. And to see someone make a mistake like that in one of the biggest games of your career, it just, no matter what team you're rooting for, it's just hard to see.
Yeah, it changed the trajectory of the game and just gave an opening for South Carolina to get moving.
This is one of those situations, like I usually say, I hate when coaches take a player out when they have 2 fouls in the first half. And then I saw that happen. I was like, and that is why you do that.
Yeah, because 3 fouls in the first half is rough.
And it just took her out of the game. I literally thought she was going to go off for 50 points by the way she started. And unfortunately for her, that did not happen. Fortunately for South Carolina, they were able to take it and run with it. And I saw Mylasia Fulwiley got quoted. At halftime, she kept saying to her teammates, Madison Booker has 3 fouls. When you have 3 fouls, there's literally nothing you could think about except your fouls. You cannot think about the game. So we have to take that to our advantage. And I would say they did just that.
They turned it on, and I thought South Carolina looked great in this game. They outscored the Longhorns 36-22 in the second half. And I just thought they were moving so well. I was like, this is the South Carolina that I want to see. Senior Tahina Paopao led the Gamecocks with 14 points, and freshman Joyce Edwards added 13 points and 11 rebounds.
Joyce Edwards played great in this game, and I'm like, how are you a freshman? Just had an unbelievable game. I would say overall her freshman year was amazing. Seeing her play like this in the semifinals, I was just like, whoa, you are going to be some player moving through these next few years.
And I was like, yes, we got people firing at the right time. We're looking good for the next game. We'll get into it, but that did not happen. Texas freshman Jordan Lee was the leading scorer of Texas with 16 points, and sophomore Madison Booker added 11 points. They were really able to shut her down, and mostly because she wasn't able to play. But South Carolina, like I said, just looked good, and I was like, okay, we've got this. But not a very close game between South Carolina and Texas. I thought this was going to be back and forth, and it just didn't work out that way.
You mentioned Jordan Lee leading the way for Texas. During the game, you kept saying, how is this girl open still? Like, what are the Gamecocks doing? And I say this because I'm thinking this girl's only a freshman. She's going to be another player to look out for in years to come.
Definitely. Every team has a plan. And sometimes the team's plan is we're not going to get beat by this person. If we get beat by this person, fine. But we're not going to get beat by Madison Booker. And that might have been South Carolina's game plan, and it ultimately worked out. Then the second semifinal game comes along. UCLA versus UConn. The number 1 versus the number 2 seed. UCLA being the number 1 seed. And I know that might be surprising because UConn beat the number 1 overall the entire tournament 85-51. It was a beatdown. This was the largest margin of victory in women's Final Four history. That's a shitty stat to be on the losing end of for UCLA.
I mean, that just shows how much UConn dominated this game. They came into this tournament with a chip on their shoulder. They're coming in as a 2 seed. They're going to play the number 1 overall seed. They feel like they've been
overlooked.
Yeah, this whole season. And they proved everyone wrong in this tournament.
Definitely. They were beating UCLA 42-22 at the half. The arena started to feel awkward because it was like, I can't believe that UCLA is down this much.
They definitely did not look like a number 1 seed in this game, and it just goes to show how well UConn played against them.
Unfortunately, they had the worst game of their entire season in the Final Four. It just sucks.
Yeah, it happens. And one of the things with that, and we talked about this quite a bit over the weekend, is you can tell in these two games that South Carolina and UConn had been in the Final Four before.
Yep.
And yes, Texas has been in the past, but not within the past 4 years with these players. And this was UCLA's first time in program history. And just the experience does go a long way.
It was amazing to us. Even in our interviews with players, the South Carolina and UConn players just seemed a little bit more at ease. And like what we were saying, it's hectic there from start to finish all day. Like not just playing a game. There are so many other things going on. It has to be a lot for a team. And to have that experience on what that looks like goes a long way.
Yeah, definitely.
UConn became the first women's team in tournament history to beat a number one seed by 30 or more points. Freshman Sarah Strong and AZ Fudd combined for 41 points in this game, and UConn forced 19 turnovers, 14 of them in the first half against UCLA.
Damn, rough. That is rough.
UConn's strategy for this game was they were going to let Lauren Betts score, but they weren't going to let anyone else. So Lauren Betts, first team All-American and Defensive Player of the Year, had 26 points. She was 11 for 18 for shooting. But UConn's big three of Paige Beckers, AZ Fudd, and Sarah Strong outscored UCLA. Their combined points were 57 to 51. So if it was just those three players out there, they beat UCLA.
Yeah. It's a tough day to be a Bruin.
Sarah Strong led the way with 22 points. AZ Fudd added 19 points. Paige Beckers had 16 points. After the game, we just thought, I can't imagine being UCLA in that locker room.
I don't want to use the word embarrassing because I'm not trying to shit on UCLA here, but I can imagine they were embarrassed with the way they played, considering this whole year they were the number one seed pretty much.
And playing like a number one seed.
And they just did not play that way in this game.
Yeah. Do you want to give a big I told you so to people? Because you have been saying that UCLA is not as good. Or does that just feel like kicking someone when they're already down?
It feels like kicking someone when they were down, but yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
But she wants you to know she was right. The other thing that I do want to point out, in these semifinal games, we saw incredible shows of sportsmanship where opposite team members were picking up the opposite team. It was just really cool to see that, and just people having respect for each other and respect for the game. That doesn't get talked about enough. We love to talk about when benches clear and fights happen. So much sportsmanship between all four teams playing.
Yeah, for sure.
The other last thing I wanted to mention about these semifinal games is that the crowds were very pro South Carolina and very pro UConn. Tampa is a hard place to get to from UCLA. I think that had something to do with it. It is very easy for people to get to Tampa from South Carolina, and UConn traveled, and UConn has a huge fan base. So I was very excited for the finals matchup because I was like, this is going to be crazy because the fans are here for South Carolina and UConn.
It was really cool to see the amount of fans who showed up for all teams, especially those two teams.
Okay, before we get into the rest of our weekend, let's pause and do an ad for ourselves. So please rate and subscribe to our podcast. We are a small podcast. It's just me and Danielle here, and we are growing. And we want
Scout.
Scout is also here. That's right. But without her opposable thumb, she can't do much to support. If you like this podcast, we don't ask you to pay. We just ask you to rate and subscribe and share. We create, edit, produce this podcast ourselves. So if you want to support us, give us a positive review, share it with the people you love. And thank you to everyone who has rated the podcast. If you send us a screenshot of your 5-star rating, we will send you a Women's Sports Weekly sticker while supplies last, because we're already going through these stickers.
I know. We go through them quick.
I'm going to have to order some more. It's wonderful. All right, let's get into the rest of our weekend. Let's talk about Saturday, which is a day in between, and it's usually a day where we get to do something fun. And we did. We rented a boat for the day. To add on to our series of unfortunate events, the boat was an hour away and we didn't have a car, so we had to Uber there, which was tough when you have Uber drivers who want to chat the whole time. And you all can let us know if you like to chat with your Uber drivers or if you like to stay silent. We are silent people. And, just a rough start to the day. First world problems, obviously.
Yeah, and we were under the impression we could choose to get picked up a little closer to where our Airbnb is. So that's why you said it's part of the unfortunate events that we are further. It's not just that we picked something an hour away. But anyways, the Uber drivers, it was a lot. I'll leave it at that. But the boat was a lot of fun. It was a beautiful day out. We drove the boat out, and apparently a lot of people know about Beer Can Island in Tampa. And we drove the boat out to Beer Can Island and anchored there and just docked up for a few hours and hung out before we headed back. But the first attempt at anchoring was a bit of a flop, and Carolyn, you had to jump in the water and get it detached from our motor.
For the record, I was not the one who threw the anchor in.
We won't send any names out there. But I actually forget who dropped it in. But all I know is we were panicking because we were getting awfully close to another boat that was anchored, and we couldn't do anything about it until we got our anchor free from the motor.
So I always love to get in the water. I didn't know I would be getting in the water so quickly. I had to jump into the water. The anchor was wrapped around the motor of the boat. Had to make sure the motor was off. And then I was physically going underwater and ripping the anchor up to try to get some slack on it to then untangle. But I couldn't see where it was tangled, and the water just kept it like splashing into my mouth. It was a lot. And then I came out of the water, and my hand was bleeding. I was like, okay, here's the start of our day. But it ended up being a great day. We had a great time on the boat, got a little bit of some sunshine, which is like all I want in life. And what I miss most besides my family in New Jersey is water. And so an opportunity to get on the water was great for me. We drive back on the boat, and the boat ride home, the wind was going against us. And so we were just getting splashed with water, like log flume level water, for 45 minutes.
Yeah. And the water was so choppy, so there was no way to avoid this. We were just getting blasted every 5 seconds with water the entire ride home. Poor Charlie literally left the back of the boat to go lay out on the front of the boat. And the second he put his head down, I mean, it felt like a tsunami of a wave pummeled him, and his phone flew out of his pocket, got waterlogged. It was just a rough ride home, but it was funny. We were all cracking up.
Yes. And as a reminder, Charlie is of the Charlie and Carly couple, Danielle's sister and her boyfriend.
Yes.
So we get back from the boat. We take the nice long Uber ride home, and we're like, we're going out tonight. We're rallying these troops up. We were a group of 8. We had other friends we were going to meet up with, and we're like, we are going out. We know that this is the night to go out. We're doing it.
On the Uber ride home, I was like, there was like a smell of smoke in the car. And I was like, that kind of made me feel nauseous, which doesn't usually happen to me. And I just figured it would go away. But I was like, that's weird.
Yeah. And I'm usually very sensitive to smells. I also get car sick. And I was like, well, I didn't really smell that much smoke. And Danielle was like, I'm so nauseous from that car ride. So we go out to dinner, and Danielle's like, I'm not really feeling well. She's like, I'm just going to drink more. And I looked at her, and I was like, oh God, okay. She really wants to go out.
And drink more. I will say I had a Topo Chico and a beer on the boat. And then at dinner, I had one drink, and my stomach was not improving. So I did order another drink because I was really trying to will this stomach ache away. I was like, I'm going out tonight. Took one sip of that 4th drink, was not having it. And then the food came out to the and mind you, we were on the boat for hours. This was 2 drinks in a span of 6 hours, whatever it was. The food comes out at dinner, and I couldn't even look at it. You started eating because we were splitting something, and I couldn't even look at you eating the food. And I ran to the bathroom, come back, and I was like, Kara, we got to go. Like, I'm really not feeling well. We start walking home because we went to dinner close to our Airbnb. The second we get off the property of where we went to dinner, I am projectile vomiting on someone's front lawn.
So much vomit.
And within a minute, I projectile vomited 3 times on this poor person's lawn. I apologize.
It was mostly liquid. We won't get into too much of the details, but we're going to be talking about Danielle's sickness for quite a while now. So just, you've been warned.
And I am putting on a brave face right now, but I'm still not feeling so great.
Yeah, if you see Danielle yawning in this podcast or looking very white, it's because she's still recovering from the final 4 flu.
Oh my God. So we get home. I immediately put shorts and t-shirt on and lay down and got sick one more time throughout the night. Then at 6 a.m. Sunday morning, I woke up to go to the bathroom.
Well, let me tell it from my perspective.
Okay, well, let me tell it from my perspective, and then I'll let you interject. I go to the bathroom. I'm trying to get back to the room, but I'm really like feel like I need ice water because I was really, really hot at this point. So I put some ice in a cup and I start getting extremely lightheaded and sweaty. And I was like, oh no. And obviously I was feeling very ill to begin with, but I wasn't expecting to get so lightheaded. So I sit down and I'm in there alone because everyone else is still sleeping. And now I'll let Carolyn interject because I lost my memory there for a second.
So Danielle had been moving around in bed all night. I could just tell she was uncomfortable. She threw up again. And I was like, oh, she is sick. She's either got neurovirus or what we're affectionately calling the Final Four flu. The series of unfortunate events continues. And so she's been moving around a lot. So I'm trying to just kind of sleep through it. So while I'm sleeping, I hear a crash and I pop out of bed and I feel next to me and Danielle is not there. And I'm like, oh no. I knew that she had said she was afraid about passing out. And so I jump out of bed and I open the door and Danielle is lying on the ground, passed out. And I start screaming, babe, 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 babe. Your sister is sleeping in the same room as us. She's like, Danielle, Danielle. She comes running out and you pop up immediately. Pop up is a strong word, but you come back to pretty much immediately.
And from my perspective, again, I lost my memory at this point. When you and Amanda were coming sprinting at me, I thought I was in bed and I thought there was an intruder in the house. And I thought you were screaming at me that I need to get up and get out to get to safety. Me waking up to you screaming my name, that is what I thought was happening.
It was very scary because you were very white. You stayed on the ground for a while. We got you some rags. Your dad ended up coming out and you were just super dehydrated.
And I was dripping in sweat at that point. And I was like, can someone put the air on? And my dad was like, the air is on. And you wanted me to sit up, but I had to lay back down until, I don't know, it took a few minutes for me to be able to get back to my feet and you walked me to bed. It was something.
So back to bed you went. So that was 6 a.m. The game is not until 3 p.m. on Sunday. So I'm like, all right, things are not looking great right now. But around 10 a.m., you are like, I think I can eat. So we got you a smoothie. You wanted a smoothie and you sucked back that smoothie. And I was
in bed still. We door dashed it.
Yeah.
Did not leave the bed. Was still in bed.
But I was like, things are looking up.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to give you till 12. Try to get some more rest and we'll see how you do. So you get some more rest. I go in at 12 and I'm like, okay, it's time to go in the shower. If we're going to make some moves to get to this game, you got to get moving. And it's not because I am militant and wanted Danielle to go.
I wanted to go and you were trying to be helpful for me.
So we get you up to go in the shower and you make your way to the shower.
Not even. I went into the bathroom and was like, there's no way I can get into the shower right now. Like I started to feel not great again. Again, walking back to the bedroom, everything started to go white. Like white spots and just everything started to go white. And I said, Carolyn, I need to sit. Sat back down and there went my smoothie.
I luckily got a bag in time and Danielle lost her breakfast. And it was at that point that I knew that Danielle was not going to the national championship game.
And it was at that point that I also accepted that I could not even get out of bed. So how would I go to a game? And I was very, very sad by this.
It was really sad in the house. Everyone knew how much you wanted to go to this game. We were all so excited because it was
this is the matchup we wanted.
Yes, and mostly UConn fans, but we were there, South Carolina fans. It was just going to be a fun day, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, there was no way in hell I could have moved, and if you know me, you know I would make every effort to be at that game.
Yes.
Even when I told Erica I was going to try to go, she's like, I told Tommy this morning, Danielle's going to try to go to that game.
Erica's your best friend. Tommy is her husband. And they love you and are such big supporters, and they were so gracious because I know that they both wanted to root for UConn, but without you there, I was the lone South Carolina fan. And so during the game, they stayed very neutral, which I very much appreciated.
Yeah, as I sat in bed. Well, Carly and Charlie helped me to the couch to watch the game from the couch. It was just sad not being. I'm like, I'm in Tampa right now, and I'm stuck in this Airbnb, sicker than I think I've ever been before. Just watching South Carolina get pummeled in this game from the couch, knowing I just couldn't be there with you all really sucked.
It wasn't the same without you. and we missed having you there.
And you texted me before you even got to the stadium because I was like, are you at your seats yet? And you were like, Danielle, there was a line, 20 minutes to get in the door in the blazing heat. You said you would have been hospitalized if you came.
You would have been hospitalized. I will say that the management at Tampa was not the best. How they decided to get people in was not the best. They had people waiting outside because they needed to check bags, but they only had 2 bag lines. And I'm like, you're doing a women's event. Everybody here has got a bag. You actually gave out bags. They gave out fanny packs during the first night. Of course, everyone's going to have a bag. And it was just very poorly managed, but that's just me complaining. But you would not have been well waiting in that line outside in the blazing Tampa heat.
No, it would have been bad.
So let's talk a little bit about this game. Goes from bad to worse. UConn wins their 12th national championship, beating South Carolina 82-59. And I'm not saying it goes from bad to worse because UConn won. Obviously, I wish South Carolina won, but it was UConn put on another beatdown of a show. And this was Gino Auriemma's 12th national championship win. He now has the most NCAA titles of any coach, men's or women's, which is a huge accomplishment. The first quarter of the game was close. I was like, this is great. It's going to be back and forth. It was 19-14 after the first quarter. UConn was up. They shot 52.9% in the first quarter and just continued to take control from there.
Watching this game from the TV, I was just like, what is South Carolina doing on defense? This is also kudos to how well UConn was playing. Like the amount of screens they were setting. Bree Hall started on Paige Beckers and she just kept getting lost, but she was also getting hit with screens left and right. And as a South Carolina fan, it was just frustrating to see it because I was like, what are they doing?
Yeah, they look confused defensively. It just didn't look like they knew who they were on. They didn't have a set plan for the screens almost. It was poorly executed. Whatever their game plan was, it was poorly executed.
They started out strong on offense. Like they hit the first few shots and then they just went cold. And I literally felt like there was a lid on the basket. They could not score.
It could be one or the other, right? South Carolina can put up a great game. Maybe they don't have it on defense, but they just go off on offense, or the other way around. But you can't not have both.
Right. Yeah. It really hurt them in this game.
So for UConn, this was their 13th national title game appearance, which means they've won 12 out of 13. I do have to say, though, their one loss was to South Carolina in 2022.
That is some record to be able to go to a national championship 13 times and win 12 of them.
Yes.
And I also didn't realize that this was the first time they won a national championship since 2016. So it's been quite a long time for UConn since they've won one.
Definitely. Before we get into the highlights of UConn, I just want to talk about South Carolina a bit more. They struggled on both ends of the court. We were watching in different places. I really thought that Mylasia Fulwiley should have been in more in this game. I believe she only played 18 minutes. She made some early mistakes in the beginning with some turnovers. However, South Carolina needed a spark. And I think she is that spark. And I just didn't feel like she got into a groove. It's easy to look back and be like, South Carolina should have done this, should have done that. But they got to a national championship doing things a certain way. And it just, again, felt like they didn't play their best game. And South Carolina, to me, I said last week, I don't think they're a national championship team this year. And I think that we saw that. And they still do amazing things to get there, right? It just wasn't it this year. So let's talk about how good UConn was. They held South Carolina to under 60 points. That's only happened one other time this season. AZ Fudd was outstanding to me, to everyone. She was the most impressive player. She won most outstanding player of the Final Four. I was so impressed by her defense. I was so impressed by her first step on offense. I thought she was so fast. It was really great because I don't follow UConn a ton. So to see AZ do that, I was like, oh, this is what everyone was talking about. This is the AZ that everyone knows when she's healthy. So that was very cool. Her and Sarah Strong finished with 24 points each. Paige Beckers had 17.
And also to add to Sarah Strong's 24 points, she had 15 rebounds and 5 assists. 11 of those rebounds were in the first half, and AZ Fudd was being interviewed by Holly Rowe at halftime. And when Holly Rowe said that Sarah had 11 in the first half. AZ just her eyes widened because that is a lot of rebounds.
Yeah.
So for a freshman to be able to do that is truly something special. Sarah Strong is going to be unbelievable.
She is unbelievable right now.
Yes. I think she'll just continue to be unbelievable. She had set the record this year for most points by a freshman in a single NCAA tournament with 114 points. In doing so, she passed Tennessee's Tamika Catchings, who had 111 in 1998. And just a few fun facts to go along with that. That same year, Sarah Strong's mother, Allison Feaster, led Harvard as a number 16 seed, past number 1 Stanford in the NCAA tournament. I wonder if that's the first and last time that's ever happened. But very cool. And her mother played 10 seasons in the WNBA. Her mom is also now the head of player development for the Celtics. So she obviously has a strong resource at home in her mom, and it's just going to be really fun to see how Sarah Strong progresses in the years to come.
Yeah, to be in the same sentence as Tamika Catchings is one amazing. And when we were talking to Ryan Rucco, he was like, I think if Sarah Strong went to the draft tomorrow, she would be in the running for a number 1 pick, like for the number 1 overall pick.
Yep.
He was like, obviously it's going to go to Paige, but if she went tomorrow, there'd be a strong argument for her to go number 1 overall. And I was like, can't argue that after what I just saw this past weekend. It was really, really amazing. And we have to talk about just Paige winning a national championship. So many ups and downs. And she pulls it off, which, you know, is only going to bolster her in the dumb conversations that people have about who the greatest of all time is and who's the best college basketball player and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. And as a South Carolina fan, I am still thrilled for Paige Beckers and that UConn team in general. Paige has dealt with injuries. AZ Fudd has dealt with injuries. Aubrey Griffin, who doesn't get much playing time, has dealt with injuries. Like, I feel like that team has just been cursed with so many injuries over the years, and it was just nice to see Paige end her college career on top.
Do you think we had a series of unfortunate events that we absorbed from UConn so that they did not?
Maybe.
We took it all from them. We took all that bad juju and just took it for the weekend so that they could go on and win. And for your dad.
We weren't even cheering for them.
We did it all for your dad.
Yes.
So with that, UConn is your 2025 NCAA national champions. Congratulations to them. We also have to give a big congratulations to the winner of our bracket, Karen Lovies, who wins a Women's Sports Weekly t-shirt.
Yes. Congratulations, Karen.
And then what were some of your takeaways overall from this weekend?
One of the things we already said earlier is you can tell what teams have been there before. Experience matters so much. That was one of my biggest takeaways. The other thing, not having to do with the games, but more so just the Final Four in general, I felt like Tampa just felt a little different this year. I felt like Town wasn't built up as well as like previous years. Some of the gear, there wasn't a lot of the same gears we've had in previous years, like the different team gear, souvenir cups. So that was a little disappointing. And I thought Amalie Arena was beautiful and the surrounding areas, there were a lot of things going on, but I just felt like some of the stuff was lacking, which I'm not really sure why.
What happened there?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a huge budget for the men's tournament, and it's like, what are we doing now? And I'm like, is it because Caitlin Clark left that we're just getting not as many things?
I don't think that's it, though.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Last year in Cleveland, we got into the airport, and there was Final Four stuff everywhere in the airport. We saw it on one door.
Yeah,
in
it
Tampa.
Just wasn't, the marketing just wasn't built up as much, which I thought was weird.
That was interesting. The other thing that I noticed is, and this is such a cliche, but like it really does not matter how you do all season. It matters how you do in the tournament. UConn just crushing people by 30 points throughout the tournament should have been a clear sign that they were headed for a national championship.
For sure.
And then although it felt like maybe the NCAA was not doing as much for the tournament, I thought Tampa was a great host in the sense that the weather was beautiful. I would love if we only had Final Fours in beautiful places moving forward.
Yeah, because we were in Cleveland, Ohio last year, and sorry, Cleveland, just wasn't it for me.
Sun and boats is where we want to be.
Yes. Which brings me to next year. It will be in Phoenix, Arizona, which count me in.
Yes, we'll be there. Hopefully Final Four flu free.
Yeah, please. I never need to go through that again.
We need to get you to bed. So what are you looking forward to this week, Dee?
This surprises me every year, but just in a week. So a week and a day after the national championship, we have the WNBA draft. So the 2025 WNBA draft will be on Monday, April 14th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Looking forward to it. Our prediction is, and most likely going to happen, Paige Beckers is going to the Dallas Wings to play with Enrique Gumbawale, so I'm excited for that.
Dejanay's there. It's going to be a fun little team.
It will be fun.
What do you think Paige is wearing? Give me a color prediction.
She wore white last year as a spectator.
That white suit, Louis Vuitton suit, was perfection as a spectator.
Yeah, does she go white again? I have no idea. What do you think?
I think she might go red. But I would love if she did white again. I thought she looked great in it.
Well, if anyone else has predictions,
yeah, red's going to be my prediction.
All right. What are you looking forward to?
Let's talk a little bit about soccer. Like I said last week, we will get back into regular sports beginning next week, but let's give you a little taste of soccer. The second friendly between the U.S. women's national team and Brazil is today, Tuesday, April 8th at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time, which is way too late, on TBS and True TV. The U.S. women's national team is coming off a 2-0 win last Saturday over Brazil, so hoping we can keep this momentum going. Like we mentioned last time, this is a gold medal rematch. That is it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports. Rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends. Thanks for joining us.